I like salad. Do you like salad?
Hi, I'm Hostion Ho. I'm living in Vancouver, BC, Canada, unceded territory of Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. I am an immigrant to Canada from China.
Hey everyone, I'm Andrea coming to you from Victoria, but more importantly known as unceded Akwesasne territory of the Lekwungen speaking peoples, the Songhees and Esquimalt First Nations, and I am an immigrant from the United States of America. And you're listening to
Canadian salad.
Canadian salad.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back.
Hello, welcome back. How are you, Hoshi?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm very good. I'm very
Yeah.
excited, especially in the coming week. It's gonna be the International Dance Day.
International Dance Day. What is that?
Yeah,
What does that mean? Like everyone
to
just breaks out and
celebrate,
dance? Oh,
to celebrate, dancers and the art form of dance, which is
ooh,
it gives me life,
it
literally. I mean,
does. Yeah.
I started dancing when I was really young, and now I still love to dance. It's definitely
Yeah.
one I see as a sports in many ways and exercise
Absolutely.
that keeps me in shape and keeps me happy.
Totally. Yeah. So what will you do anything special for
I'm
International
just
Dance
go
Day?
out and dance, I guess. I just go out
In the
and dance.
street?
I
You
dance in the street
should.
all the
Downtown
time.
Vancouver.
Or they have to pay to do that. They have to pay to see me dance, actually.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean,
No, that's
yeah,
true.
they
Yeah,
better pay
it's
me, yeah.
that's right
Mhm.
because nothing ain't, the goods are not cheap and
Yeah, this ass shaking is not cheap.
What's your favorite kind of dance?
Ooh, I will have to say voguing.
Voguing. Okay. Is that what today's topic is about?
Exactly. Today's gonna talk about voguing.
Yay. I am so excited to learn this window into your life and to learn more about it because I honestly don't know anything about it. I know some things, but
Voguing,
not, yeah.
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 Voguing
Go
is
ahead.
special for me. It's very special, obviously,
Yeah.
because I got introduced to it quite late in life. I got introduced maybe 3 years, 4 years ago.
Okay.
Um, but it has been now it's a very important part of my life now, and because it's such like a queer expression in many way, like the
Mm,
Vogue culture or ballroom culture, which we're gonna explain later, is such a showcase of queer resilience, queer excellence, and so much
okay.
more. Yeah, that's
Okay.
why today we're gonna this episode,
All
and in honor
right.
to International Dance Day, we're gonna talk about the art form of bow or
The
voguing.
Oh, voguing. Okay. No one
Mhm.
can see me, but I'm doing like the little Vogue
Vogue, yeah,
frame
Madonna.
on your face.
Angel,
Probably pretty terrible.
Do you
Do
know
I
anything about Vogue or voguing?
So when I would, well, when I grew up, I remember learning about Vogue magazine. I remember
Oh, you know the
there were
magazine, yeah.
magazines that were no-nos in my childhood because a scandalo, they were just women
Oh,
were like wearing their cleavage was like there and it was fashion and it was lots of makeup and I don't know, my parents were very averse to anything that was, glamorous. And also, they didn't want me to, I think part of it is that they didn't want me to think that this was beauty, that was represented in magazines. And yet I had, I don't know, 18 Barbies. So there's that. And then Madonna was a name associated with Vogue. It was like Madonna and Vogue, because
mm-hmm.
she was a singer, but again, she wasn't someone that I listened to, unfortunately. But I remember the strike a pose. I remember that was always something that was like a cultural
Phenomenon in many
reference
ways,
and
yeah.
phenomenon growing up
Mm-hmm.
in very cis white gendered
Mm-hmm.
culture, and
Mm-hmm.
so definitely pulled some things from that kind of culture, and I have no idea what that relationship or even what those words meant. So anyway, I know near to nothing. I just have a few memories of the magazine aisle and Madonna.
Wow, and
That's
today
it.
you're gonna learn something
Yes.
same as a lot of our audience gonna learn something
Yeah.
today. Yeah.
Yeah.
For
Did you know
me,
anything?
I
Yeah, before
no,
you
I
know?
no before coming to Canada, I knew nothing. Even living in Victoria, first there's no like ballroom scene there, so I know nothing. The
I'm
only thing kind
shocked.
of have the only kind of thing I know about like before going to my first ball was from RuPaul Drag Race or like Pose, these kind of popular shows, then because these shows often um, have reference ballroom scene, like ballroom culture. I mean, Pose in many ways also about ballroom culture or the people in ballroom culture. We highly recommend it. It's a great show. It's a great
Okay.
show. But before going to my first ball, I knew nothing. Or before going to my first ballroom class, I knew
Okay.
almost to nothing to about the ballroom scene.
So, I mean, would you say that integrating into Canada, this has been a piece of that integration, just this discovery of this kind of window and culture into something that you have never experienced? I mean, because it is
Oh,
very unique, right? Not
yeah.
not
I
in
mean,
China.
oh, actually, that also an interesting question. First, to your question, I was answer half of a yes, not full yes, because
Okay.
after I explored the ballroom culture here, I realized in China, especially Shanghai, there's a big ballroom scene. It's just very underground, and I was never, so
Wow.
I never knew.
Oh
And
my
also
gosh.
it's also a big scene in like Korea, in Taiwan, Japan, and in Hong
Singapore.
Kong. Singapore,
Hmm.
I don't know about Singapore had a big scene actually. Maybe
Oh,
that I
I
didn't
found an
know.
article on Singapore, but
Maybe,
but you
yeah.
know more than me, so yes. Yeah.
I did that. I can't that I didn't know. Again, I didn't have much knowledge there. I find out after I kind of enter into the ballroom scene.
Okay.
Um, but it's very underground, which is very on theme with ballroom culture because it has been
Okay.
always been very
Really?
underground for until like maybe Madonna, Vogue, and even now, maybe in the mainstream culture, maybe a lot of people still only know
Hmm.
about the magazine or Madonna's song rather than the
Yeah.
dance itself.
Hmm.
So I still, in many ways, I think voguing or ballroom scene in general still remain very underground.
Yeah. Well, let's bring it above ground and you can teach us about it. Maybe, yeah,
Yeah.
share the very beginnings. Yeah.
Yes, the history of ballroom is very, I feel like it's really a history of America as well, about racial
Oh,
prejudice and resilience, as I mentioned before. So the dance style itself is it was nurtured and blossom inside the ballroom culture. And
okay.
so we have to talk about the ballroom culture first. The ballroom culture, when we say ballroom, is not the ballroom like the salsa and tango, not the kind of ballroom,
No,
but
this
another
isn't
kind
like
of
European tinking the
not the
tea
European.
glasses and raising your pinky.
A
Yes.
different kind of ballroom, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So it comes from like around the 80, 67-ish kind of timeline. Like the Hamilton Log, number 710, is a club for a lot of African Americans. It is in New York, by the way. And they started throwing like a charity masquerade gala, which is called the annual Oddfellows Ball. It's like a drag ball
Okay.
featuring a lot of men in female drag or women in male drag. The event was later known as the Faggots Ball or the Fairies Ball, which is really queer,
Wow. What
obviously.
year was this? Sorry.
It was about the 1867-ish,
1867. Okay,
so long
remember
ago.
that everyone when you say, when you have the naysayers who are like, "Oh, well, things that are happening now weren't happening, back in the past." It's like they were. You
They
just
were happening, yeah.
you weren't
A
paying
lot of
attention and it
it,
wasn't a safe expression probably at that time, but I'll let you maybe get into that. So,
yeah, this sport's actually quite popular. There's like thousands of people come from out of town to actually go to this sport because, again, at that time, of course, there's first not a lot of options for queer people to express,
right.
their sexuality or be different or dress, and femininely for men or for women dress masculinely. These places are not a lot, so when there's safe space for people to express, of course, all these people just come together to
Yeah.
these spaces. And of course, this kind of drag ball, back then it was a safe space for many people, also a refuge too, and also a lab for many people to experience to kind of try um
Okay, yeah.
try
Experiment
out
with
things
new moves or new
new
expressions
moves,
or
new
new.
expression of gender identity, all of that. Slightly after 1867, when it first started, there's a phenomenon there. It's called Harlem Renaissance.
Okay.
Yeah, is again, of course, it's in Harlem, in New
Harlem, New
York.
York.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and at that time, um, maybe around 1920-ish, the growing kind of freedom and expressions of Black culture kind of blossom because again, a lot of Black people and marginalized groups slowly have more freedom and also kind of climbing up the class ladder, and then they are getting um, slowly have more space and mental capacity to express and to find life beyond surviving. So a lot of African American artists experiment with their craft, their artistry,
Mm.
and also explore their gender, sex, and sexuality like never before. And
Mm.
this Harlem Renaissance also fuel into the ball scene, which is at that time mostly a drag ball. It makes it even bigger.
I see.
Yeah. But then, unfortunately, racial
Mm.
prejudice still exists even though members of the Hamilton Log, who host the drag balls, try to be racially and economically diverse, and there's even some even lower prices of admissions so that Black Harlem residents could attend. The ball still exploited racial and class divisions.
Mm.
Black queens were even expected to whiten their faces if they expected to win prizes in
Gross.
this balls. Yeah.
Gross. Oh,
And judges generally favored white, Eurocentric features. And it wasn't until 1936, which is 69 years after their first ball, a Black contestant took home the top prize for the first time. So it shows you how, even though it's a refuge for many queer people, it's not
it was
necessarily a
still
refuge for.
legislated, or not legislated, but it was still capped and it was still, restricted. It sounds like by predominantly white.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
The
people
judges
who were in
mostly are.
charge. Yeah.
Yeah, people in charge are mostly white people for sure. So yeah, it gives you a kind of landscape of how even you can say queer have their space, but Black folks not necessarily have their space.
Right.
So
Wow.
that's and of course with this kind of increased racial tension, this cannot last long. Both in the ballroom community and American as a whole,
Hmm.
Black queens began to seek out their own spaces, and Crystal LaBeija, which is like an icon, is a legend, is like a very important figure in the ballroom history, is credited with staging the first black ball in 1962.
Wow. Were people who participated, was it primarily African Americans, and then, of course, maybe European Americans? Were there other cultural groups present
Yeah, there's a lot of
at
also
that
Latinx
time?
people at that time. Yeah,
Okay.
Latinx people also a big a part of it. Also a lot of trans
Okay.
people that also participate in that. People of colors. There's a lot of
Okay.
different kind of people of color participating in
Yeah.
the drag ball at that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So but it doesn't matter how many people of color participate in these balls. The judges are white, so biases will be present,
Sure.
which is
Yeah.
very unfortunate. Yeah.
And it sounds like the European participants were the judges. There were no Black judges. There were no Latinx judges. It sounds like
Mm-mm.
the
Yeah.
gatekeepers were your
The gatekeepers.
colonizers. Yeah. Yeah. Gross.
Unfortunately, really
Yeah.
is. But that's why it led to like an outrage in the community to decided to have their own ball rather than relying
Hmm.
on the Hamilton Lodge to host this drag ball and uphold the white Eurocentric beauty standard, obviously.
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
That's awesome.
And
Yeah.
and since the 1962 first Black Ball, many things flourish.
Mm.
First, the ball began kind of shifting from this elaborate pageantry to like Vogue dance battles, because the
Oh,
drag ball
cool.
obviously mostly about showcasing gowns and your body shape and your beauty. And they're slowly
That's
shifting
awesome.
that slowly to more Vogue dance battles. And because of that, also voguing as a dance style also have space to
Okay.
flourish.
Okay.
And that's also how voguing slowly becomes a more and more important element in the bar scene.
Wow.
Um, and then Vogue or voguing as a dance style, the name I actually is from the magazine. In
Okay.
case
Okay.
you
It
don't already
is.
know, yeah, it
Okay.
is. In case you don't
Okay.
already know,
Okay.
because the dance style or the movement at the beginning is really about mimicking poses of models, and then They're just, a series poses and then making into movements. That's kind of what at the beginning what voguing is. And this kind of style, we call it the old way, like old way as a style of voguing, which
Okay.
again, as I mentioned, is about mimicking model poses from the magazine
Yeah.
Vogue, for example.
Yeah.
Hence the
Yeah.
name come from. And then it slowly also developed, and then the new way also was developed as a style in voguing. New way still takes a lot of posing like from old way, but it also adds, for example, contortion and also have more emphasis on arms control and lines that your body can make from motions. And that is new way. And then from new way, they also develop Vogue femme. Femme, comes from the French word femme,
Okay.
with women, and which
Mm-hmm.
from the name you can also can tell that this style of voguing is more emphasis on the femininity of
Okay.
movement and the
Okay.
fluidity, the fluid movement of
Yeah.
voguing as well. And then it also adds way more dramatics into it. And um,
So, question. So then, if this is becoming more femme and more fluid, would you say that prior to this, it was much more male dominant and almost kind of those masculine undertones?
Yeah, the like old way or new way definitely have a more male participants based on what I research. Even pictures that I saw from back in the days or these legends of old way or new way, most of the pictures that I saw also mostly
Okay.
from male. I would argue, don't quote me on this, that I
Okay.
think would be more dominated by male. Yeah,
Yeah.
but in Vogue, like in the ballroom scene, when we say male, we don't mean like cis male, obviously. Like even
Right.
yeah, we don't mean cis male.
Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah,
That's interesting. A little bit, it kind of makes sense just because, there are very traditional roles with even different cultures. Women are raising children. There maybe are the lack of opportunities to go out and to express themselves or to, present their ideas or go to these labs and create things. Those opportunities may have not been there for women earlier on. So,
the thing, the thing is that actually a great point. Like from what I research, like the ballroom scene is early form is actually very like binary in many ways. A lot of
okay,
categories is really either male or female. You
got
have
you.
to present in a very feminine way or a masculine way. There's no in
Interesting. In
between.
between.
Yeah,
Yeah. Just
there's no in
expression.
between.
Yeah.
But I think I would argue the way that it was at this early stages of the ballroom scene is because for the outside world, outside ballroom scene during that time, first like the idea of non-binary and maybe it's not necessarily as very popular. We were not there yet in terms of breaking down gender stereotypes in many
Right.
ways. That's first. And
Yeah.
second, I think ballroom scene in many ways also it was a safe space for people to practice their femininity and masculinity. So when they go out in the real world, they can pass as a like a real woman, quote unquote, and a real man.
Mm,
So that's why a lot of these categories it gives them space to practice it.
yeah. Finding
Yeah.
that community of safety, but also that community of self-expression. And, because society isn't kind,
Yeah.
unfortunately, that was the way to survive for probably
Yeah.
a lot of people, right? Like if I can pass this particular gender, then I'm safe. And I know that, maybe I won't be mistreated
Beaten up.
or
Yeah. I
right,
won't get
which
mistreated or
awful
call
things have been
out.
done, killed.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right?
I mean, one of the categories, first, like ballroom, like a ball. When we say a ball, it's basically like, as in many ways, like a competition. We have different categories, and people will compete in different categories. That's what a ball is. And voguing is one of the categories. Well, we don't call it voguing in a ball. We call it performance. Performance is a category, and the people can vogue. You can vogue in old way or new way or vogue femme.
Okay.
Then there's under the umbrella of performance. And then one of the categories that is often in a ball is called realness, which is literal to very simplify it, it's just competitors had to kind of pass as a cis, like straight male or female. That's
Oh,
basically what
wow.
realness is. Yeah. Because you have like secular realness, schoolboy realness.
Who kind of holds that standard of, well, that's real, right? Like
Um,
how do you
the
know that
judges,
the
the judges,
judges, okay, so the
the
judges have
judges
to be convinced of their
that
definition of what real is.
what femme is, what mask is. Yeah.
Theirs, but maybe not yours or someone else's.
Yeah.
So you hope to have a good judge. Because that
Yeah.
I
Well,
bet that would be confusing. I could imagine if you have different judges. Well, what's his definition? I don't know. What would you know? No, I don't know.
I think back then the idea of being feminine and being masculine would not necessarily be as complicated as nowadays. In ballroom, there's certain way to dress to fit that kind of code of what is
Yeah,
passing as
yeah,
a man or a woman.
yeah. And I can only imagine. I mean, we're not there yet, but I'm sure it's evolved since then, right? Because when it started, gender was it, people weren't recognizing maybe gender as a social construct, at least
Yeah,
predominantly, right? So I can only
yeah,
imagine there's been a lot of evolution even in what realism or realistic
yeah.
competitions look like.
Yeah, we're non-binary categories, but still, then you have three. You have men and women and non-binary. In many ways,
That's
still
it.
kind of yeah, kind of fits
Yeah,
people in boxes. You know, if
sure.
you go to male, you have to be very masculine presenting, and female to really
Gotcha. Yeah.
feminine presenting. And then if you don't feel like, and then I guess
Hmm.
if in between you, I guess you go to non-binary.
Hmm.
But then I think the like the scale of masculinity and femininity can vary,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
So
Sure.
so there's still like certain standard of how to be a woman and man
Hmm.
in this kind of scenario. And also sometimes I also go on this kind of forum discussions and also look into some people's posts. Some people like there's scenes that may be more tradition, they don't agree with non-binary categories. And some
Mm.
scenes are more, I guess, maybe more open-minded or more liberal, then they will open up to non-binary people kind of deal. So it really varies of how
Yeah,
people sees gender, but I think gender is a big role in
sure. In
Vogue.
shaping. Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, like it's a big thing in terms of like categories. But also you have to consider one of the group of people that are the pillar that builds the ballroom scene is transgender people.
Mm.
You
Hmm.
know, they have this need to present their gender, no matter as a
Right,
woman or as a man. So I think this
right.
gender categories also is giving trans people that space to explore, to experiment, to
Yeah,
showcase their
right,
femininity and masculinity
right.
in us in the way
In a
that the outside
safe,
world, yeah, in the outside will not allow them.
no.
So it also is very like vital
Yeah,
um, to the
yeah.
trans community. Yes.
Like a lifeline, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, it's very important.
Yeah.
So, there's no new answers to discuss this.
Of
There are different way
course,
to
of
see it,
course.
but of
Yeah.
course, it exists because it has, at least at that time, it because serve a very important purpose. And I will even argue, even nowadays, serve a very important
Mm,
purpose as well. I just
I believe
think,
it.
yeah, as time changes, maybe we should also consider updating it. But that's
Okay.
my argument, and not necessarily everyone shares with that. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
And the last thing I want to share is about houses. You talk about ballrooms, you cannot escape talking about houses. So
Okay.
houses is basically this idea that if you compete, go to a ball to compete, a lot of them probably from a house, from a group. And this group,
Okay.
we call it a house. The history of it is very interesting. So like I was talking about that Crystal LaBeija was the first one credited to staging the first black ball. And then ever since then, she hosts a lot of other balls. And then there's a Harlem drag queen called Lottie kind of asked her to maybe co-promo a ball. And then asked her maybe like have a formal group together so we can promote the ball together and do this together rather than do it her own. And then she's convinced and then formed the first house in the ballroom scene, which is the House of LaBeija. Um, and then she is the mother, which is like a parental figure or like the leader role, which that term
Okay.
we still use today. We still call a house leader a mother or a father.
Okay.
Um, and these houses, even till now, is such an important tradition and element in the ballroom scene because back then, it has a really kind of dire need to have houses because these houses um, become like a circuit family for a lot of
Mm,
young queer Black and Latino kids who
yeah.
often were exchanged from their biological family, living on the streets, doing sex work, and struggle to get by. And a lot of this father or mother in the houses would adopt them in the sense that will actually let them live in their house. Like,
Mm,
so it's actually a house, and they will live together, give them guidance or how to, no, but not just only to walk a ball, but also give them guidance how to live, how to earn money, and give them resources, all of
sure.
that. So this houses back then literally was a home to many, many people. And for me, that is the most endearing part of what the ballroom scene offers to me, at least.
Mm,
Like I'm also
yeah.
fortunate in a house of Mulan, and my house members or siblings, part of my career experience and enforcement in a way in my career assistance, and they are very important to me, and they give me a lot of guidance as well.
Yeah.
My house mother,
Yeah.
house father, all of them, love them
Mm,
dearly. And
mm,
in a house, you also kind of expected to walk a ball, to like win, to go together, to be each
yeah.
other's support system and practice
Yeah.
and represent the house, represent a family
Mm,
in some sense. That's what a house is.
yeah. I can only imagine, and I can see to your point, I can see how that particular aspect being kind of a really core pillar, core component of ballroom culture, because we both know society is not kind, family members are not
Yeah,
kind,
yeah,
friends, communities that we're born into, that DNA family becomes a really hostile place. And to have a community to say, I don't want you on the streets. I don't want you to be hurt. I don't want you to end up in jail. I want you to have a life and to be welcomed and to be taken care of because you're worthy of this. And so I can see how, especially if the global majority, where you have particularly people, ethnic minority groups who are predominantly a part of the ballroom culture in a place where at the time, for sure, being non-white was very, very dangerous and was
yeah,
still really combating a lot of social stereotypes and barriers. And so I can see how this concept of house or even houses creating that space for people. I don't know, for some reason when you said that, I'm like, oh, well, that would be a beautiful type of church in the sense of what, like a perfect image of what a church would be, right? Like, you need something, we're going to take care of you. We're going to give it to you. We're going to host and be generous and inclusive and kind and loving. And what a beautiful, what a beautiful picture of
yeah.
what belonging and community and dignity and love for one another is.
Yeah, the more I look into it about houses, many of the father and mother of the house literally offer like a physical house, like they live
Wow.
in with them. So like at that time, especially, I can see how important it is for the survival of many queer people at that
Mm,
time.
wow.
Yeah, so always have such I don't know, like soft spot
Yeah.
whenever houses are mentioned in a
Yeah.
ballroom. And I love that, oh, I'm from house or something, or you're from house or something. And I always
I mean, you hear it in your voice and I see it in your face. Not everyone can see your face, but yeah, it's there. It's beautiful.
it is beautiful. I think, yeah, it's just the meaning of it. The existence of a house is also for me represents the kindness and the greatness of humanity in some way that we
Yeah.
are able to do this.
Yeah.
We can
We're
help one
capable.
another. We're
We
capable
really
of,
are.
yeah,
Yeah.
we're capable of creating a community that based on mutual respect and I don't know, just this tenderness
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I have no words to express.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. So I love that. I think also that is a great segue to lead to my last point to talk about how ballroom for me is like a refuge.
Mm,
I think then and now still,
mm,
um, because it's still a safe space for many people. I would say especially for trans and Black folks,
mm,
because the environment, I won't say right now, still like that much better. I think they're still
mm,
facing a lot of prejudice that
mm.
like me as a cis Asian man might not face.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
and Ballroom give them that space
Mm,
to be at literally everything, anything they want. And I think
yeah.
that is a beautiful thing of Ballroom culture that I wish that it can just be anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and appreciating where it came from too, and knowing that it was born out of struggle, it was born out of love, it was born out
Yeah,
of creativity. Because I think this is whiteness in the sense of like when I hear Vogue, I think, oh, Madonna, white
yeah,
lady, right?
yeah,
Now though, because I know a little bit more, maybe I can begin to remember where this came from. And I feel like for a lot of what we talk about and even the immigrant experience, it's like, we're so globally connected. It's not like you can just participate in something and think that, oh, well, that's just maybe Canadian or that's just like something here in BC. No, it has a long history and it actually belonged to a people at a time that really needed and wanted a place for their own, a place to be themselves.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, like Borum literally was born because of like Crystal LaBeija, for example, was outraged by the racial prejudice they were facing at that time, and then
Yeah.
she decided, oh, I'm gonna throw my first black bar and
Do it. Yeah.
f all these white people that
Totally.
keep robbing us of our equal opportunities and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
And so for me, Borum is created really of resistance,
Yeah.
of a
Hmm.
protest of this dark place.
Hmm.
Um, and then for me, it's a message
Hmm.
of resilience, of love. That's why I said ever since I went to my first ball, it has captured me. Like it becomes
Yeah.
such an important part of my life because the message of it just everything that I am for, that I would love to contribute. Not only that, also like Ballroom also is such like a cultural hub for me too. Like as I
Yeah.
mentioned, a lot of the queer language that we're currently using are from the Ballroom culture. Like we call it, oh, work, a slay, that's shady. All these
Yeah.
words are originated from there. So
Yeah.
we're constantly talking about, even as immigrants, you're talking about where things are from, where are you from? You had to go to our roots in many
Right.
ways to
Yeah,
appreciate
we
things, and that
do.
is part of
Yeah.
it too,
Yeah.
right? And not to mention, it also influenced the music, like Madonna's Vogue, Beyonce's Renaissance album. Vogue has
Yeah.
such influence on this music that we all love, and in terms of fashion as well, because Ballroom has
So much
created
music.
so much, yeah, so much
I
music, yeah,
mean,
and fashion as
yeah.
well.
Yeah.
So Ballroom contributed so much to our daily life. It's especially
Yeah.
in the queer community. Um,
Yeah.
but then I don't think it necessarily get the credit that it deserves because it's such an underground thing.
Right.
I just think that I hope, this little podcast can help people recognize how much contribution Ballroom has made to our culture in general, and the queer community, the survival of queer community, and safeguarding,
Yeah.
documenting our
Yeah.
progress and our resilience.
I think everything that you said, and I think it definitely can be used to teach us to do better, to create safer spaces for people who are honestly just being themselves, right?
Hmm.
The fact that no one should have to hide, no one should have to be underground. That's
Hmm.
not the future anyone deserves. It's not the life that anyone deserves. And I think Ballroom, at least for me, I'll speak for myself as someone who's completely unattached to the culture, who hasn't experienced the things that you have, Hoshin. I will say that it's a huge teacher for me. And it's a huge
Hmm.
example to me of the kinds of communities we can create, the kind of families we can build, with
Hmm.
chosen people, and the ways that we can love people better. Because let's face it, with everything that's happening now, we do need to love each other. And I feel like even like these dance battles, I mean, what a beautiful way to resist, but what a non-violent response to like express feeling and emotion. I talk to I talk to my son all the time about like they could do this, they could just dump skunk spray all over so and so country that's dropping these bombs, and that would make everyone just like stop, and they couldn't do anything because everything stunk so bad. We're just trying to think of these non-violent ways, and gosh, there's so many other ways to connect with one another and to express what we need to express without being mean or harsh.
Yeah.
We can create beauty out of anger. We can create beauty out of sorrow and grief. And
That's how I see it. That's such a great way.
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to put it. I think ballroom is like the beauty that is created out of anger.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. It's a beautiful art form that created from protesting. It's a
Yeah.
really non-violent way of fighting
Yeah.
what is against them,
Yeah.
against
And
us, I guess.
and the liberation to be
The
who we
liberation of it.
are. Right?
Yes. Oh,
Yeah. So if you're
yeah.
listening, go out and buy a ticket. Pause this
Yeah.
show, type in ballroom events in your local city, wherever, and buy a ticket.
You can follow, if you're in Vancouver, you can follow
yeah.
Van Vogue Jam. As in one
Van
word.
Vogue
They
Jam.
have a lot.
Okay.
Yeah, there are a lot of ballroom events. They have free classes every Tuesday even.
Awesome.
And they are the organization in Vancouver that is promoting the ballroom scene here, which they have done tremendous work. We love them very much. So
Cool.
please go support them. If you're in Victoria and you're like inspired by this podcast and you want to create the scene in Victoria, go do it.
Yes.
Go do it. Yeah.
And email us, and Hostion will be like an uncle, and he can like give you some pointers.
I'll connect you to the right person. You know, I will help. I will
I'm volunteering
help you as much as I can. If you want to do this, please do. And please support the ballroom scene and learn as much as you can from it, and support in any way you can, obviously.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, Hostion, for sharing this part of you with all of us, for inviting us into a world and a window that maybe not a lot of us get to walk through. But I'm very thankful that you did, and I've learned a lot, and there's a lot more I have to learn. But it's been a really beautiful episode with you. So.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I hope some people learn something too.
Yes, I hope so.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I learn a lot too. I mean, I have to do research too. I also learn a lot of nuances.
Yeah.
From that. So I also thank you for the opportunity. All of the audience give me the opportunity to speak to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So next we're gonna go to our Canadian pop quiz.
Canadian silent pop quiz, yes.
Canadian silent pop quiz. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I worked really hard to find,
I believe so,
a question for you, because this is a very new topic for me. So
which is okay.
If you don't mind, I'm going to go first. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. In what year did Vogue Magazine begin?
I don't have to answer to that.
You know the answer to that?
I don't know the answer to that. Ooh.
Okay, well, think about the history.
Year?
Think about the history of
it has
ballroom.
To be before 1920.
Yes. Yes.
It's definitely before 1920.
Yes.
Because Vogue was established by that, so maybe like 1900, like early 1900s has to be.
You're really close. It was 1892.
1892. Okay.
1892. And this is really cool. Put the link in our website. But the name, basically, she was looking for a name for the magazine that they wanted to do, and she had a long list of names. But this is out of a research in Vogue, the illustrated history of the world's most famous fashion magazine. And quote, it says, the list of names was long, but none of them seemed quite right until the editor-in-chief, Josephine Redding, showed up at an affair where she was expected to announce the name of the new publication, bearing a century dictionary in her hands with the word Vogue underlined. And the story goes that the publisher and the art director were immediately convinced, and that was just the name they needed to identify their social gazette. So there you go, 1892.
Okay, now we know. You also taught us
dictionary.
Today.
Yeah, thanks, dictionary.
Yes, thank you, Andrea, too, giving us that piece of information.
You're welcome. All right, I'm ready. I know I'm not going to know the answer, but hit me.
I didn't know the answer either. My question is I think it's quite easy. I think you should. I hope you get it.
You have a lot of faith in me, my love.
I do, because I
do, and then
I do have a faith in you.
Then the faith gets broken because I don't get it. Anyway,
the question is, which city is the first kind of ballroom scene emerge?
Oh, Harlem.
in Canada.
Oh, in Canada. In Canada. Ooh. Quebec City.
I'll give you one more. Yes.
Toronto?
Yeah, ding 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 ding.
Okay,
Toronto
okay.
is it's close. It's the closest big city
I was so the
to New
reason why
York.
I Quebec City was only because of French people and just like French art and fashion and flair and things like that. So I
Although
wondered if
true, it
maybe
makes sense.
that's why, but
Yeah.
I was but yeah, okay, Toronto makes sense though too.
Toronto, I mean,
So
because it's just geographically, it's like,
it's literally a
closer.
spit away from New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, is where, yeah, in Canada, Toronto is the first city where the Vogue scene, the ballroom scene kind of
Awesome.
emerged, and then now it also becomes the hub, kind of the
Oh,
ballroom scene
okay.
hub in Canada as
Okay.
well. All the
Okay.
old houses, all the big
Cool.
ballroom names are like in Canada are from Toronto, or
Cool.
currently residing in Toronto. Yeah, all the
Very
big
cool.
balls. So like we all in Canada, at least you want to make it, you have to make it in Toronto first.
Oh,
You know,
that is like
that there
that's the
that's
place. Okay.
yeah, that's the place to make if you want to really make it. That's where you
Okay.
should, you have to be.
Gotcha.
And Vancouver is quite new. Yeah.
Well, good to know. Hoshin, next episode,
Next episode.
I feel fired up for it. Do you know why?
If you find because it's something that you're passionate about, I assume.
Yes.
I mean, that's all the topic that we talk about this
Pretty much.
podcast.
Yes. Every episode. But yes, next week, please stay tuned. We are going to talk about Canadian work experience and is it really necessary for your first job? We're going to explore the tale as old as time phrase. Sorry, you don't have any Canadian work experience. You're not going to get the job. So,
I know.
yeah, we're really going to unpack it and maybe do a bit of rants. So stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, stay tuned. We just dropped our very first Canadian salad snacks newsletter. So it is a newsletter. You can sign up on our website and you can get firsthand information about not only our next coming episodes, but what listeners are actually saying and have an opportunity to weigh in on what you would like to hear and what topics you would like to be discussed. So go to our website.
What is our website?
Yeah. It is canadiansalad.ca. And you can find us on most social media platforms except for the dying Facebook. Sorry, we're not going to waste our time there. So Instagram and TikTok.
Exactly. You only need to type in Canadian salad to find it on Instagram and TikTok.
That's right.
And again, leave a message or send us an email.
Yeah.
hello@canadiansalad.com. .ca, sorry.
.ca, yeah. Yeah. And be ready for a very fired up, ranty episode next week. Join us.
We all need to rant. It's good for our mental health.
It is.
Okay, we'll see you next time.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Canadian Salad is written and produced in British Columbia, Canada by Hostion Ho and Andrea McCoy. Theme music is by Naver Avetyan from Pixabay.
This has been a good Janklin production.